episode 217 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today is the 14th of July, so welcome everybody. I hope you've all had a lovely crafty week since the last time I've spoken to you, and I'm here to share all the things that I've been making in the last 7 days. So today we have some knitting, some sewing, confessions, oh dear. I have a question for the Ask Me Anything section. I have some information on my shop update, which includes stuff on Advents, which will be released on the 1st of August, so stay tuned for that. And then the little appearance from Jensen at the end of the podcast. And today he's got a toy to show you that's handmade. If you want to skip along to any of the sections, if you look at the progress bar at the bottom of the screen, you can skip along to the sections just there. They're divided so that you can find them quite easily. So we've got a couple of Makalongs going on in the Ravelry group and on Instagram. The hashtags for those two Makalongs are in the description bar down below, but one's Craft 20 a Day and one's the Summer Sock Along 2022. If you use the hashtags on Instagram or come along to the Ravelry group, you can take part. You don't have to actually finish things to put them in the thread. It's all about your progress. I'll be drawing prizes from all of those posts, so if you just get involved, you're in with a chance of winning something. So you've got until the end of August to put in your entries for the Summer Sock Along, and for Craft 20 a Day that goes right till the end of the year, but every 3 months I draw for prizes. So let's get on with the knitting, shall we? So first of all, I have a sort of finished object. Now I have shown this before, but I decided that it was a little bit on the small side, so I got Liz to knit some more. So this is the Puff Shawl by Lisa Much, and it is supposed to only have 3 of these sort of bumpy rows here, but I got her to knit an additional 2 to make it 5 there, which actually was really good because it used up all of the yarn that I had for the purple, which was really good. This was a little bit small when it was just the 3 repeats of these bumpy bits at the end, so I'm pleased that Liz was able to knit the other 2 repeats for me just to make it that little bit bigger, and it comes out a really nice size now that can be sort of wrapped right around rather than it being a little bit on the small side. Really pleased with the size of it now. But it is a crescent shaped shawl. You can see, because it hasn't been blocked, it does sort of stick out at the top there to start with, but once that's blocked out it will look really nice and sort of straight on that top edge. And I'm going to block out these bumpy bits just out a little bit more when I do block it, and I will show it to you when it has been blocked properly, but I literally cast it off last night, so I didn't get a chance to block it to show you on the podcast. So it's knitted in a fingering weight merino yarn, which is the purple, and it's Galaxy by Bad Wolf Girl yarn. I've had it in my stash for absolutely ages. I'm not quite sure if she sells Galaxy anymore, but I thought that that went really well with this blue coloured mohair and silk in between, and it makes it a bit more transparent with it being in the mohair. That's a lace weight yarn. So that was a 25-gram ball of the lace and 100-gram of the purple colour, and I actually had 5 grams left of the lace out of a 25-gram ball, and there was 200 meters in the 25-gram ball of the Debbie Bliss Angel, and the colourway that I used was a 15009 colourway. So I did use up pretty much all of that and every single scrap of the purple yarn, which is really good. So that's out of my stash now and into something very, very wearable. I do like this pattern. The more I look at it, actually, I think Liz has knitted an extra row on this repeat, but I think that looks quite nice as well anyway. I think sometimes little happy accidents can make little changes to the pattern so your item looks a little bit more individual. And it's much longer actually with those few more repeats. So if you think about it, it's this much longer on each side with those additional 3 repeats, which is really good. And for me that is the perfect size, otherwise it is quite a small size shawl. Especially Liz knitted this one, and she's quite a loose knitter as well, so if you were a tight knitter like me, the shawl would probably end up quite small if you just stuck to the original instructions. So what I did to sort of work out what the stitch count was on the additional rows is that in between these 3 first repeats of the pattern, I just noticed that there was additional 4 stitches each time, so I did make the calculations for the additional 2 repeats so that so Liz knew what stitch count to follow, but it was quite easy to sort of work out. But there we go. That is the Puff Shawl by Lisa Much. So the next thing I've got to show you is the progress on my cardigan, my sparkle cardigan by Ho Hi Locatelli. I'm going to get Barbara over to show us what it looks like so far. So if you'd like to come over, Barbara. So Barbara is wearing the body panels of my sparkle cardigan. Now this is it's a lace pattern normally, but I've just knitted it in stocking stitch instead, just so that I've got a nice staple cardigan, because I really liked the shape of the body and the way it's constructed when I knitted my first one. So this one I have knitted slightly longer than the first one I did. I made the other one, it was in pink yarn, and that was a little bit shorter so that it would just come to my waist, so that I could wear it with dresses and things. But I have knitted this very slightly longer, but it's not really long, because I still wanted to be able to wear it both with dresses and jeans as well. So I finished the main body of that and cast off. I did a 1x1 twisted rib around the bottom, and you can see, even though it's curling up a little bit, that it's coming along really nicely. So I've got to obviously do the sleeves and then pick up stitches around the neck and both sides and do the ribbing on there, but I think that looks quite nice so far. I should have pinned it to sort of show you what it looks like when it comes together, because it is a bit it does roll up quite a lot because it is stocking stitch, but this is what it looks like so far. A nice little staple cardigan, really. So it is knitted in my Ocean Drive colourway, which is a merino silk and yak yarn, which is a lovely soft yarn, and it's in the Ocean Drive colourway, which is like a teal but on the sort of green side of teal, I'd say. And I think that'll go with lots of different things, because I do like sort of blues and turquoises, which will go with this really nicely. And also grey as well. So the base yarn that I've dyed this on is a grey anyway, so there's some beautiful grey tones coming through the teal colour there. When I dye my tonals, they're quite they're really tonal, so there's some real areas of much lighter and darker colour, which is exactly how I like it, really. And it's a little bit more like a hand dyed yarn rather than just a solid dyed commercial yarn. So that is coming along quite nicely. I'm pleased I've got to the bottom of the cardigan and cast off. And I will be starting the sleeves next. I think, so before when I knitted this, I went down 2 or 3 sizes on the sleeve to get the sleeve to fit. But because this isn't lace, it's a solid knit rather than lacy fabric, I will only go down sort of 1 size, I think, just to make sure that I've got plenty of room for my arms. I did something really naughty. I didn't do a swatch for this second one because I had knitted it before, and I've just stuck to the same stitch count that I used the first time I knitted it. But because I have lost quite a bit of weight around my bust anyway, also the yarn is very slightly thicker, so I think that it won't be much different anyway, and I'm just going to change that stitch count on the sleeves. So normally I would suggest you do a swatch for every garment that you do if you do it in different yarn. If I'd have just done it in a different colourway in the same base, that would have been absolutely fine. But because I used a different base for this one, I really should have swatched. But because I've lost weight, and also because the yarn is very slightly thicker, I thought I'd risk it, which is very, very naughty. So there we are. That is my partially finished sparkle cardigan by Ho Hi Locatelli. And I'll leave links to the pattern and for the yarn that I've dyed in the description bar down below. So thank you very much, Barbara. So the third knitted thing I'm going to show you is a half-finished object. And I've managed to finish one sock of my stripy socks that I'd started knitting on the last episode. So this yarn is from Giddy Yarns, and this is one of her gorgeous gobstopper balls. I have this much left, but look how gorgeous it is, and it's just a pleasure knitting from this. She's hand wound it, Helen. So Helen from Giddy Yarns has hand wound this, and it just looks absolutely lovely. So there is a contrast cuff, heel and toe in the turquoise, and I think that the turquoise balances the bright pinks out beautifully, because I'm not one for a very, very bright pink, or at least not too much of it, but I think with that mint it just looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm really pleased with how those have come out. So basically what I did is I cast on a top down sock, and I did 12 rows of 2x2 rib. Then I did 1 row of the mint colour before I went into the stripy, because I don't like it when you've got a colour change in the pearl bumps. I think it looks slightly neater if you do just a plain knit row before you go into the colour. If you look closely you'll probably be able to see that. And then I started just knitting away, and then actually I'd got past where I wanted to put the heel. And I thought, oh no, never mind, I'll just do an afterthought heel. So I then kept knitting to the point where I thought, right, that's enough for the length of the foot plus the length of the leg where I'm going to add the heel. So this distance here is basically the length of the foot minus 4 inches, because your toe and your heel are about 4 inches. Well, that's if you're doing about a 64 stitch sock anyway. I'm using a 64 stitch sock. So I did a 5.5 inch strip for the foot, not including the heels and toes, for a 9.5 inch foot in total. And then I just wanted a nice little short sock. So then I added my toe when I'd done that tube, and then I cut in for an afterthought heel after I'd finished the rest of the sock. So I have a tutorial for how I do an afterthought heel. I've just done a true afterthought heel here. I really don't like picking up the stitches first with a needle and then cutting, so I cut first and then pick up the stitches after. I find that if I do it the other way around, I end up splitting the yarn and getting in a right tangle, so that's why I cut first. But I will link a video up the top here and in the description bar to show you how I do the afterthought heel. And I do have a video where I show how I knit 100-gram balls into a massive tube and split that into 2 pairs of socks. Because this is only 50 grams and I wanted to do a short sock, I can get away with just knitting the length of the foot, the toe, and then adding the heel and doing the second one the same. But I will link all of those tutorials in the description bar down below. So there we go, that's the Cherry Blossom yarn by Giddy Yarns, and they'll be my cherry blossom socks, and they're very summery for the summer sock along. I have actually started on the second sock. I've made sure that I've started with the pink first so that they're going to be matching, and I've just got my Progress Keeper from Chapel View Crafts there, nice big slice of cake. And I'm using higher sharps on 2.5mm magic loop. So the next section is sewing, and I have actually completed a sewing item this week. So I did a class that me and my local quilt group organised, and the teacher was Helen Butcher, who is Little Patch Pockets, and she taught the class of how to do this gorgeous 3D cushion cover. So it is basically 4 blocks there made with 4 different fabrics and the background fabric, and those were joined together with some strips of fabric, and she went through this really nicely with detailed instructions of what size pieces to put together, and diagrams of how to sort of construct it so that it was easy to follow and understand, because there's quite a few pieces in there. So during the class I finished the panel for the front, and I started to get the pieces together ready for the binding. And then I was able to finish the front of the cushion. I layered this up with some wadding and some backing fabric and did some quilting. I just did some straight line quilting because I think that works really well with this pattern. with this pattern that we've pieced. Just did some straight line quilting. You might be able to see a bit better if I come closer to the camera. And it looks like this, and you get this 3D effect. So you get a frame in front of a square sort of popping out, and you do the sort of opposite colours, so you can see 4 different versions of it on the cushion front. So the back of the cushion is actually a zip as well, and she gave us full instructions of how to do that. This isn't quilted on the back, but it is the same fabric that I used on the front of the cushion, and then I've just bound it with different strips of fabric so that they go together quite nicely with the design on the front of the cushion. So I'm really pleased I managed to finish that, and I purchased the cushion insert from Dunelm, and I got a cushion pad that was actually quite a bit bigger than the cushion itself, because I like my cushions to be nice and plump. I always go for a feather cushion because I find that actually when you've sat on it a bit, when it's squashed down, you can plump it up again and it looks as good as new. So I do like a feather cushion rather than the polyester filling ones, really, especially for the lounge. I really like the way this looks. I actually made my binding slightly different to how Helen did hers. I just used my sort of normal method that I normally do. I sewed my binding to the front and then put it over to the back, but Helen does hers a slightly different way. But I went on autopilot and did it the normal way that I normally do it, but I would actually like to try the way Helen did hers as well. But I'm really pleased with how the cushion came out overall. It's about a 22-inch square, and I ended up buying the cushion pad that was a couple of inches bigger actually, because quite often the cushion pads themselves aren't made really plump like the way I like them, so I just bought them to be slightly bigger. And I do like that the front of the cushion is nice and quilted because it feels nice and cozy, and Jensen has already given his approval for the pattern of the cushion because he was looking at it very closely earlier. And I actually wanted to make this because I wanted some cushions to go in Jensen's playpen so that they can be sort of thrown at the bottom of the playpen so he can have something nice and squashy to lie on when he doesn't want to just sit up and play in his playpen anyway. And it goes with our decor in our lounge. So there we go, that is a cushion and a pattern from Helen Butcher from Little Patch Pockets. I have had a look at Helen's website and I haven't seen this pattern in particular on her website, but she does have a lot of 3D patterns on there, which I will leave a link to. But I do have some other stuff from Helen to show you in a second. But I'm sure if you contacted her and asked her if you could buy the PDF pattern for this cushion, that she'd have it on file and be able to sell it to you via email. So Helen obviously taught us that class, but we've also booked her in for another class later in the year in September, and she has actually given me the samples to borrow to show the rest of the group before the class comes. But I thought I'd show you because actually I saw that this particular pattern was for sale on Helen's website as well, and I just thought it was really lovely. So it is another 3D pattern, and isn't that really gorgeous? So striking with the use of the 3 different fabrics, so it really looks 3D in the centre here and all around it as well. So this is a placemat, but she's also done various different fabrics so that you can see what it looks like in other fabrics. So we've got a sort of grey, so we've got different shades of grey there, has the same sort of effect. And she's also done a Christmas themed one with Christmas fabrics, and I thought that was lovely as well. And the way she's quilted this, I just thought that was absolutely gorgeous, and the binding down in the stripy fabric looks lovely too. So there was 3 different versions of fabrics that you could use, and this is called the double up pattern, and it is also a set that's got a table runner with it as well. And isn't that lovely? I actually really like the way she's chosen this purple and blue fabric to go in between, because it makes it look even more 3D, and it's really beautifully quilted and looks lovely on both sides as well. So we're going to be doing that class in September, but like I said, Helen has got this pattern on her website, and I will leave a link to that in the description box down below. So I know Helen sells patterns in a PDF form, but if you are in the UK, she will post out a paper form with a little bit of an additional cost there as well. So when I was at the class for the cushion the other day, she also had some of her patterns for sale. So I have some confessions now. So she not only does lots of 3D patterns, but she had this gorgeous quilt that is the alphabet, and I thought I need to make this for Jensen because he obviously needs to learn his alphabet. So I bought this one, and this is called Block Caps, and I just loved it in these bright colours, and you can see 2 stars either side of the end of the alphabet, but then you've got all the letters of alphabet there. So I bought that to do, and I also saw this little pouch which I thought would be really nice for knitting and to hold bits and bobs in my other craft bags. So I thought that that would be nice to try out. But this isn't only a pattern, this is also a kit as well, so it's got the fabrics in there ready to make up. So I thought that was really nice, and this is a petal pouch kit. I haven't seen this particular pattern on Helen's website, but I did see the alphabet one. I will pop a link to the ones that I can find in the description bar down below. And I'm sure that if you inquired about this pattern, if you wanted to buy one of these, if you emailed Helen, I'm sure she'd have some already made up, because she had like a box full when she came to do our class. So I'm very excited to have a go at those. If you look on Helen's website, Little Patch Pockets, there is also a number of classes that she teaches that you can choose from, and price lists of how much it costs to get her to travel to you and do a class in your local community. So I definitely recommend Helen as a teacher. She's a really good teacher, and she gives really good paper instructions for you to look at after the class, which is always nice when you're thinking, how did I do this, when it's all written down in the information that she gives out. So the next section is Ask Me Anything, and I had a question from Tracy, and she was saying that recently she's bought yarn from charity shops. And she was just wondering whether I would recommend washing before or after using yarn that's bought secondhand from charity shops. I have bought yarn from charity shops previously. I must admit it's been more, not merino, but more sort of acrylic type yarns when I first started sort of knitting. But you might be lucky and find some hand-dyed yarn in a charity shop if you're really lucky. I would say that it depends on how clean or dirty I think it is to begin with, to be honest. Of course, if it's been unravelled and I can see that it has been unravelled, I will definitely wash it, because it will sort of straighten out those fibres, so you won't get that wrinkly effect as much. So what I do is wind it into a skein. If you've got a Swift, that's handy, or a niddy noddy, to wind it into a skein, and then have it so that you've got sort of figure-of-8 ties, 2 or 3 points around in the yarn, and then give that a wash. If you've got any cable ties as well, put that round the skein so that it's easier to sort of pick it up. Give that a wash and then hang it to dry, and then it'll be straighter and much easier to use if you do wash it, if it has been unravelled from something. But I think it all depends on how clean you think it is to start with. If it's a ball of yarn that you think actually it seems like it's not very, it doesn't smell at all, I'd be fine just to knit with it and then just wash it afterwards. I always wash my knits after I've knitted them anyway, even if it's sort of an acrylic yarn. So it depends on how sort of clean you think the yarn is. But again, if it has been knitted into something and unravelled, I would definitely soak it and then let it hang out to dry so that it's straightened out those fibres. So the next section is shop update. So I just wanted to mention the August yarn clubs. They will be available on the 22nd of July until the 31st of July, and those will be shipped on the 12th of August. That is the August yarn clubs. Those of you who purchased the July and August clubs will go out on the 12th of August as well. And next I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the advent calendars that I'm going to be having in the shop on the 1st of August at 7 p.m. That's a Monday, the 1st of August at 7 p.m. And I just wanted to say a little bit of information about what the theme is, etc. So this year's advent theme is going to be Jolly Jingles. I like to think of something that sort of rhymes a little bit and is also rather festive. So this year, Jolly Jingles, and again you'll have the same choices that you do every year. You can either choose a 10 gram or 20 gram minis, and you can either choose 12 days or 24 days. So it comes in a real wide price range. So if you can't afford to have a big 20 gram 24 day advent calendar, you could have a 10 gram 12 day, which makes it much more affordable. So you are giving yourself a little bit of a treat, but it's not costing too much. Each of the minis will be wrapped in a little sweetie bag, and some of the bags will have a little bit of extra in as well. So I won't tell you what will be going in them, but it'll be a little bit of a treat for you. I won't be telling you what's going in there exactly, but there'll be things like perhaps stitch markers and little bits and bobs like that. You will have the choice between 4 different bases. You will have a merino and nylon, a merino, nylon and stellina, a BFL and nylon, which is blue-faced Leicester, and a merino DK. So 3 fingering weight yarns or the merino DK. So you'll be able to choose all those things from several drop-down boxes in the listing for the advent calendar. And also you will get a new free pattern with that advent calendar. This year is going to be a cowl. I will show a finished version of the cowl before I release it, but I'm not going to show it just yet. But it will be a cowl that you can wrap around your neck a couple of times, or of course if you don't want that option you could just knit it shorter and just have it round once. But I will, of course, if you don't like the idea of knitting a cowl, I will give you the option. If you email me before I send the patterns out on the 1st of November, you can choose one of my other patterns. So I have a wrap pattern, a triangular blanket pattern that you can choose instead of the cowl pattern. If you don't want to knit the cowl, you can choose one of the others before I send them out. So the listing will be available on the 1st of August, and I will be sending out a PDF file with the pattern on the 1st of November, so you've got plenty of time to have a look at the pattern before sort of Advent, you start opening your Advent calendars and knitting along together. I also give an option for a sock set and project bag, which is sort of separate from the advent calendar but the same theme. It'll be Jolly Jingles, so it'll be a festive theme, and it will be a medium-sized project bag. It will be a choice between a zipped or a drawstring bag, and then you will get a sock set, so that's 100 grams of the base of yarn that you choose, and a 20 gram mini. So it can be the merino and nylon, the merino nylon stellina, the BFL and nylon, or the merino and DK. So you've got 4 choices for the bases of yarn as well. And that will actually come with a free sock pattern, which will be released on the 1st of November to people who have purchased the kits. But the actual pattern won't be available to everybody else to purchase until the 1st of December. So you get that a month early, and also it's sort of included in the cost of your kit for the bag, as will the cowl pattern. So that will be released to everyone else on the 1st of December, but people who have bought the advent calendars will get that cowl pattern on the 1st of November. And they will get it included, whereas it will be a paid for pattern to everyone else. So I have a page on my website where I talk about advents and all the different choices you can have on my website, so I'll leave a link to that in the description bar down below. But the listing for the advents for this year will not be on my website until the 1st of August at 7 p.m. GMT. But I'll leave a link to that information page down below. If you have any questions, just email me on crafthousemagik@gmail.com. That's the easiest place to contact me. So last of all, it's Jensen. So over to you, Jensen, and you've got a new cuddly toy. So Jensen has got his little gnome, and this is knitted by his nanny Liz, and he loves it. He loves his little hat. And tell us about it, Jensen. He's too busy looking at the camera now, aren't you? You love the camera. And we've got your cushion there. As you can see, we've been using our lounge cushions on the floor. But I've put the cushion that I've made in here just for him. I'd like to make another one as well. Oh, he's showing us this little toy. It's lovely, isn't it? Oh. Oh, he's stroking him. Oh. Daddy's showing properly. He's a very cute little gnome. Oh, there you go. We've dropped. Bless. So thank you very much to Nanny for making us a little gnome. And I'll leave a link to the pattern in the description bar down below. Say bye-bye, Jensen. Say bye-bye. He's looking at Daddy waving at him. Bye-bye, Jensen. Thank you very much. Oh, right. Is that your big nappy? So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you in the next episode. Bye!